to Politics Within Reason, the official podcast of the Party of Reason and Progress. Show the world you care about progress. Go ahead, give us a like or a share. And if you want to learn more or support your purpose, visit partyofreasonandprogress.org. Welcome to another episode of Politics Within Reason. I'm your host, Mike Ham. With me tonight is Holly Griffith and Samuel Jennings. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight we have a really full plate. I think we're going to record for about 30 hours tonight. Does that sound good? I think we are just so much to get into.
I think that was just the news from today, too.
Right.
And that's from Monday, the 20th, by the way.
Yeah, if you tried to recount this in real time, it would take far longer than the actual events that have unfolded. I think the real thing to start off on here is that the Alabama Senate race. Do you guys want to recap some of the crazy stuff you've seen?
Oh, this is my favorite Senate race in United States history, obviously. But, essentially what we've got going on is a racist troll, named Moore, has, what's that guy's first name?
Roy.
Oh, shit, I forgot. Roy Moore. Roy Moore won the Republican primary against Luther Strange. Luther Strange is kind of like your normal, everyday Southern Republican. He's just conservative, just kind of the same Republican that we're used to. Roy Moore is kind of like a wacko off in right field. I was going to say left field, but he's definitely not in left field. So he's anti-gay. He's very much a theocrat in that he believes that Christianity should be the basis of all our laws.
So much so that he's been kicked out of the Alabama State Supreme Court. Twice,
right? Yeah, twice. Yes.
Because one of the times was he didn't want to enforce the Supreme Court of the United States decision that under the Equal Protection Clause, gay people needed to be able to get married. So he felt so strongly about that he refused to enforce the decision, refused to let people issue marriage licenses to gay couples, and he was kicked out over that. But essentially what happened is, it turns out that this man has a little bit of an interesting history with women.
Yeah, who would have thought somebody who abuses authority would always have abused their authority, right? It's just in every circumstance.
I mean, we should be clear. Roy Moore was a terrible person.
He was a very terrible person before. Yes.
Before we found out he decided he liked to try to rape 16-year-old girls.
Well, now he's a pedophile.
Yes.
Well, I think two 14-year-olds have come forward now and claim that he's tried to do things with them. And it's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yes.
I mean, where do you go after? I mean, all of his history against, just being so homophobic and so racist. And he was just such a terrible person before. But now it comes out that he's basically tried to rape teenagers. Mm-hmm. And people are still defending this guy. Like the White House came out today and they effectively said, Kellyanne Conway came out and said, well, we want to pass our tax plan. So, we're still on board. And it's like, what the hell? What is rock bottom for you people? I don't understand.
Yeah, on Pod Save America, they had once, joked before this came out that even if a Republican was a cannibal, they would be supported. And I think that's what we're seeing here, right? I mean, it's really quite something to see the defense of this guy. And, 538 today, I think, released a poll, or, the aggregate of polls saying, oh, yeah, Doug Jones, who's a stand-up guy who took the KKK on and got people thrown in jail for killing four little girls.
Right.
While Roy Moore was out there, being a skeevy, son of a pedophile, yeah.
Call him what he is. He's a pedophile.
He is a pedophile.
And not even that. I mean, he's actually tried to rape women. I mean, we can get on somebody for trying to date underage women, and that's skeezy and that's creepy.
Right.
But he allegedly sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, and he allegedly tried to rape a 16-year-old girl in his car after offering her a ride home from work.
Right.
I mean, what the heck?
He left her in a parking lot, right? I mean, just unreal. And he's just being excused.
And when he did that, he looked at her and he said something to the effect of, look, you're a little girl or you're a kid or something like that. A child, right. Yeah. He said, you're just a child. They're not going to believe you. So he knew what he was doing. I mean, he knew this was wrong.
Yeah.
And so he said, basically trying to keep her or prevent her from speaking out. I'm this powerful man. You're just a child. So he knew what he was doing and he knew it was wrong.
Yeah, his quote was, "If you tell anyone I'm the district attorney, nobody will believe you." I mean, that is just so creepy.
Yeah, it is just disgusting.
I mean, that's bad movie lines right there, right? I mean, that's one of these just such a cliche abuse of power, and there it is. And
Roy Moore is the villain from a Dirty Harry movie who gets shot running away from Clint Eastwood.
Right. And here, no, he's going to get elected to the Senate. I mean, at least there's a high possibility of that. It's tied, right? I mean, it's
pretty close.
That was the 538 result, and I said this quite a long time ago after he won the primary. I said, I think he's going to get elected. And there's a lot of change momentum, obviously, now that this came up. There's a very good chance for Doug Jones, but it took this. It didn't take all the terrible things he said about gay people.
No, they didn't care about that.
No, that was actually a plus.
And the thing is, I'm doing air quotes as I say this, he's a good Christian man, because that's what he's always been. That's been his platform, right?
Right.
He's a good Christian man. That's why he's so homophobic, because he uses his Christianity, and he's going to save traditional marriage, and he's going to do all these other things, and he's super Christian. He wanted to have the 10 Commandments in front of the Alabama Supreme Court, and that's his shtick. And so it's just like, I
mean, it shows the power of the narrative. Donald Trump is accepted as a good Christian man to a lot of the same people who are supporting war.
Oh my God! Right.
It's fascinating, right? Like, if nothing else, it's really showing this kind of bankruptcy of the ideology, if you can say that with a straight face, right? What does it take to be a bad Christian man at that point, except a Democrat? It's just
it takes advocating for pro-choice legislation to be a bad Christian,
and that's a very good point. Yeah. That's their sword is the abortion issue. And so I was reading an article today. 6 years ago, 30% of white evangelical Protestants believed an elected official who commits a moral act in their personal life can still behave ethically and fulfill their duty. So basically, you could do something bad, but you could still be a good person and fulfill your duties in public life. That was 6 years ago. Today, that number is 72%. So that that you could do a bad thing. So basically, it's like Trump and all the crazy stuff he's done. You can still fulfill your duties.
Yeah, and this is the problem when you don't police your own, right? When you accept that somebody like Roy Moore can represent your party, even if he says these really hateful things about gay people, or he abuses his position of power to ignore the Constitution. If you don't police your own on that, you get to the point where you have no standards and you have no morality and you have no ground to stand on. Whether that will actually hurt them, we don't know. It's still quite possible Roy Moore wins Alabama, but it could be that they actually do lose Alabama, and there will be some consequences for this. And we saw this in Virginia. There were consequences.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. Roy Moore has already helped tarnish the national brand of the Republican Party.
Yes.
Because what we have is, and let's not make, even if Roy Moore, and I'd say it's probably 50-50 at this point between Doug Jones and Roy Moore, which is amazing because Hillary Clinton got 34% of the vote in Alabama.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the Democrats are outnumbered 2-1 by Republicans there. But even if Roy Moore does win, he's associated the Republican Party with this kind of full-throated defense of anybody who will vote for tax cuts for rich people and block women's health.
Yeah. And then there was a pastor that came out today and said, and I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face. Okay, I'm not, but it's just, I cannot believe this is how far we've come to. Sometimes 14-year-olds look like 20-year-olds. What? I'm not joking. That was a pastor. Like, that makes it okay.
But when you call them at their high school, it should be a little bit of a warning.
Trig class.
Yeah. What are you doing? I'm in trig class.
I'm in trig class. I mean,
can you not?
Wow, that is blows my mind that guy is still up for consideration, right? That's fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, he's protecting the children. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a strange thing. Anyways, you really could do any number of things. You could, I don't know if you can actually stage a write-in candidate in Alabama. It actually seems like there might be a problem with that. But you really could just write in Jesus, right? Just go for it. You could say...
Here's your hot take. Right-wing, hardcore evangelical voters are basically the American Taliban, and there's no reasoning with them. There's no compromising with them.
They're not.
You just need to show up and outvote them.
Just outvote them,
there is no alternative. So, I mean, there's nothing that will turn them off from Republican candidates because the Democratic Party will not compromise on. We will not compromise on supporting women's health, and that means supporting the right to have abortions.
That's actually come up in the Democratic platform recently. Is how much should we court these Democrats who are also anti-choice,
right?
And should we start compromising on that? That was an issue brought up recently in the Democratic Party. I was very, very disappointed in that.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I think it was shut down.
If we want to talk about that, here's your view from me on that. So basically, what the National Party should be doing is trying to support people who win local primary, and we shouldn't be actively going out and trying to recruit people who do not agree with the platform. But at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is a democratic organization, and if the people who win the primary aren't as progressive on women's health as we'd like them to be, they've still won our primary, and the alternative is a Republican. So it's a hard conversation to have.
Maybe starting to compromise, unfortunately, and it's very disappointing. But.
So this is one place where we've done a really poor job of framing the national conversation, which is that even if you overturn Roe v. Wade, you're going to have abortion still exist. It's just going to exist in not every state, right? There's unlikely to be an instance where you will have no abortion in the United States, right? It will be legal in the states. It would take probably a constitutional amendment, which is unlikely, to completely outlaw abortion. But what I'm trying to get at is that we've had a really big problem as, from the left, where we're not framing things correctly in terms of what is constitutional and defending your rights. I had this really great conversation with Derek Crow, and we were talking about how the sanctuary city cudgel that Republicans keep waving around has been really driven by the right wing. And what it really should be is that those cities that protect your constitutional rights get slandered as sanctuary cities. But that's not what they're doing. They're protecting your constitutional rights for how long you can be held if you're arrested. And, this goes to, you have a constitutional right to an abortion. You have a constitutional right to bodily autonomy as a woman. And maybe what we ought to be doing is introducing body autonomy laws, right? If you're a man, nobody can take your spleen. If you get into a car wreck and you hurt everybody else's spleen, and your spleen could save someone, right? Nobody can take your spleen.
Right. No one can force you to give blood or what.
Right. No one can force you to give blood, right?
Yeah. We're still on an opt-in organ donation program. I mean, come on.
Yeah, sure, right? Not a bad idea. But the point is, nobody could force you to give something up, right? And so talking about it in terms of, bodily autonomy for everybody would be maybe my way of how can we redo this, right? The abortion argument is stale. It's unlikely to change very much, right? It's going to shift back and forth.
It's not going to change.
It's not going to change. Yeah, people have held opinions pretty steady. But things like bodily autonomy, those might really matter. And there's some other things that are going to come up with, like CRISPR, where this might matter. Could you be forced to remove a gene from your body? For the good of society? There might be some bodily autonomy questions that come up. And so, and this is, again, the constitutional idea, the sanctuary city is actually a city that protects your constitutional rights if you get arrested.
Right. Which shouldn't even be a thing.
Shouldn't even be on the radar.
That should just happen. Why does it have a special designation?
And, the other thing is, we have a constitutional principle of delegation of powers and delegation of authority. Mm-hmm. And essentially if we were to outlaw sanctuary cities, what that's doing is that's telling all of these cities that they are now deputized border control agents and that they need to be forced to enforce U.S. border control laws. And, it's a problem because you're telling local jurisdictions what they need to be doing. So if you're talking states' rights, I mean,
right, all these states' rights people who, with their Confederate flags,
So I think there are ways that we can reframe our message to better appeal to people like that, but it's still going to be really hard because they're members of the Christian Taliban, and they're kind of shut off to anything that we'll say. So we got to kind of nibble around the edges.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little problem with the Taliban reference, but I mean, I get your point. The point is that they are listening to a certain set of news. Yeah,
Forgive
I know.
me.
I'm angry tonight. There's a lot happening, and the Roy Moore thing really brings it up. And when you see that much support, I can understand why you frame it that way, right? Why else would you support Roy Moore? That's ridiculous, right? Roy Moore being elected to the Senate will not end abortion. period, right?
No, it won't end
It will not end abortion. So,
but they think, okay, so the ends justify the means. So if I vote for this guy, regardless if I believe he's a pedophile or not, I can still get my Supreme Court justice. I can still get my laws voted on.
Right.
That will, even if it doesn't end abortion, it will make it as hard as possible to get one. And that means that justifies it.
Yeah.
And that's their rationale. That's what this article said.
And in some
it makes it
ways,
okay.
I could respect that, right? But I don't think having Doug Jones there stops that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that if you put Doug Jones in there, who's a really stand-up guy and would be probably an amazing representative for Alabama and really help move that state forward, that I don't think you're missing out. If that's
he has a D next to his name.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you, Mike. Electing Doug Jones. Doug Jones, if elected, would be senator through January of 2021. He'd be finishing out Jeff Sessions' term. He was elected in 2014. So he would be a senator through all of President Trump's first term in office.
Okay.
Now, what that means, the Democrats have a very narrow path to picking up the Senate in 2018. If Doug Jones wins, that means that the Democrats do not have to defeat Ted Cruz in Texas. If Doug Jones loses, that means that they do have to defeat a Republican conservative Christian in Texas, which is going to be a very hard uphill battle. Now, if the Democrats take control of the Senate, then they can refuse to appoint any Supreme Court or other judicial nominees for the entire last 2 years of President Trump's term.
The Mitch
use the Mitch McConnell defense.
Yeah.
Yes, that is exactly what's going to happen.
If they get the Senate, yeah.
And you need to consider that the people on the right are cognizant of the fact that Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court decision and that in order to reverse it, they're going to need to stack the court. And that is exactly what they're trying to do. They're hoping that some of the more elderly Supreme Court justices are going to die or retire in the next 3 years and that they're going to be able to stack the court with 2, 3, 4 conservative justices, get a test case before them, and then blow up abortion rights.
Yeah. Okay. So all right, you got a good point.
Electing Doug Jones gives the Democrats about a 50% chance to take back the Senate in 2018. And if we take back the Senate, then we can block the takeover of the court.
That's an excellent point.
This is an important election, by the way.
Right.
If you haven't donated to Doug Jones for Senate, please do so.
Please do.
Or if you live in Alabama, please get registered. I believe late November is when you can still register. I think it's the 27th. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe it's the 27th.
I don't care. Register right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
do not wait.
If you're listening to this podcast, pause the podcast.
That's right.
And go register.
Go get registered.
And then start. I don't want to hear you listening again until you've registered to vote.
Exactly. And call everyone you know in Alabama and get them registered.
Your friends.
It is all about turnout. We saw that in Virginia. This might be a race that is won by a couple votes. It really might be.
Yes, for real. We're not joking.
Yeah. And so this brings me up on the police your own, right? So Al Franken, clearly, right? This is somebody who I am a little heartbroken by, right? Because I love him in the Senate. You know what I mean? Like, I love his work in the Senate. His book was great.
Yes.
Like, that was one of the first political books I read was, Lying Liars.
Yes.
And
the one before that too, I forget what it's called, but yeah.
Anyway, so it's just up till this point, this week, he was somebody who I really admired and I thought was just, stand up, and I thought he'd been doing an excellent job in the Senate, trying to hold people accountable. Then these allegations come out, and I want to be very clear that I think Franken was wrong to take this picture, right? To pose in this picture that has come out. And some of the other things are a little fuzzier, right? The unwanted kiss, she at least agreed to it. I'm not saying that it was right of him to do it, but he may have had the perception of, okay, she said okay, right? I'm not saying it's okay.
Right.
I'm just saying.
No, I could see that.
She from her own.
There was some miscommunication of, well, she agreed to the kiss, but what exactly does that mean whenever the kiss?
He might
what
have
is
been
the kiss?
Trying to be a skis and trying to get more out of it, right? I won't try and say that didn't happen. Yeah, that, but the really amazing thing about this to me was that she brought up the accusation and he issued a really weak defense at first, and then he issued something much more clarifying and I thought actually appropriate, where he said, hey, investigate me, and I am absolutely ashamed of myself for this. And she took the apology and accepted it, and that's kind of how adults should act, right?
Right.
I think
and she even said we don't need to do the investigation. Like, she was fine with not doing the investigation,
Right.
which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I think you can't be more outraged than the victim, right? Like, if you are more outraged than the victim, that's not a good thing. Now, that said, then a new allegation comes out today, and this one is that he was posing for photos with somebody who recognized him at the state fair, and she says, he reached down and, held her butt. And this was in front of her husband. I don't know what to make of this one.
I don't either. That's strange.
I've seen a lot of, have you ever seen like celebrities like doing pictures where they're touching somebody? It's always awkwardish as hell, and I'm not trying to excuse him here, but
no.
But if you
especially with it being the second allegation.
Right. Yeah. Once the allegations stack up, it's problematic, right? I have a problem with that. But if you've ever seen people try to take pictures, they fumble around and they move their hands and I don't know. It seems weird you would do this in front of the husband, and he didn't notice it, supposedly.
To be fair, I have not seen this picture, so I can't.
Well, they have the picture, really, but it's only from like the waist. You can't. It's even like mid waist
really
up.
It?
Yeah,
okay.
it's like stomach up. You can't see it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of this. And again, if a lot more come out, or even like one or two really credible ones come out. This woman at the fair, she told her husband right afterwards, and she told her sister, and so, she has some credibility, right?
So she did talk about it. Yeah. Well,
she talked about it.
Then the Senate, and this was when he was still a senator, right? So I think the ethics committee, then they need to investigate. I think that's the only appropriate thing to do.
And I think it's amazing he asked for his own investigation, right? Like from my point of view,
that was very, very upstanding. Let them investigate.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to get in the way of that. That's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, he's at least asking for the investigation. I hope he's the person I think he is who would resign if it was really found that. I agree.
And if it is found that he's done something wrong, then resign. And I hate to say that. I do like Al Franken, but hypocrisy is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Republicans do. I feel
right. It shouldn't be for our own, because then you end up with somebody like Moore who ends up winning a primary, and then you find out he's a pedophile, right?
Right.
And then you might lose a race you should have won.
Well, can we talk about the guy who's had, 16 or 19 women accuse him and nothing's been done? And he's living in the White House?
Oh, that guy. Yeah. Let's talk about that guy. But he hasn't admitted it, so it's not a problem.
Here's the thing. Like, the difference in the party's response is galling. Yeah, so we look at the allegations against Senator Franken. We have two instances where he allegedly sexually assaulted somebody.
No, not assaulted, maybe harassed.
Well, you're crossing the line into physical contact. I am. That is assault. So,
hold on. No, there's actually a technical definition there, and if you accidentally brush somebody's backside, that is not assault, right?
No, but sticking your tongue down somebody's throat is assault.
Well, but if they agree to it, right? I get what you're saying. Like, I'm gonna get what you're saying.
That's the allegation.
That's the allegation.
So we're going to move on from that, and say, hey, okay, yeah, those things are bad. Let's do an investigation. Now, Donald Trump is accused of much, much worse.
Right.
And he has admitted to it. He admitted to it in that tape. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And, later denied admitting it, and maybe he was just bragging. I don't know. I certainly don't brag like that.
It was locker room talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
But regardless, he admitted to it.
He admitted to it. And he shakes the Tic Tacs like he's going to go try and kiss. Anyways,
I'm going to go kiss her.
Yeah. If you look at the way the two parties are responding, Democrats come out and we say, yeah, we'll support an investigation against Al Franken. And, if he really did these things, he should probably resign and we'll appoint a replacement.
Yeah.
And Republicans are all lining up behind Trump. I mean, how is there any equivalency here?
Yeah, and I want to be pretty clear here. If you hear, people on the right really getting into this and being like, oh, Al Franken's bad, but they refuse to discuss their own, they don't really care about the issue, right? The issue is not important to them. The thing that's important to them...
They're using it to distract from Roy Moore.
Right.
That's what it is.
And you cannot compare Roy Moore to Al Franken or Donald Trump.
No, those things are very different.
The only way Al Franken would be comparable to Roy Moore is if Leanne Tweeden was 14 and there were 9 of her.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah. And he denied it.
And the same with Trump.
And he denied it, yeah. That's right.
All of his victims were, 13, 14, and there has been this girl, I think her name is, her fake name is Maria, and they do. There is claims that he did rape a 13-year-old at one of the parties at somewhere. I'm sorry, I don't have all the facts with me right now.
I think, but anyways, yeah.
There is an allegation that he did rape a 13-year-old. Ivana, his first wife, did,
yeah, that's
and this
right.
was in court testimony, that he raped her
Under
too.
oath. Under oath. Yeah.
Under oath.
There are a lot of women on the record who are not asking for anything. And they are just saying, this happened, and it's happening exactly the way he says he does it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just that.
The way he bragged about it.
It's a he said, she said, but they're saying the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's he said, she said, she said, she said, she said, she said, she said, and I could go on for a few minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
And they all say the same thing, essentially, you know, and it's unreal. And so that gets us to, we're 30 minutes into this podcast, right? And we haven't even hit on these things like the tax reform that's going through, or actually the tax cut for the ultra wealthy financed by you. You're going to pay more, or at least some of us are going to pay more, so that private jet.
Let's leave the sexual assault thing with this.
All right.
You know, let's all not lose our heads about Al Franken. There's going to be an investigation.
Let the investigation
Let's wait
go.
to see what the investigation reveals. If this is a pattern with him, if he voluntarily resigns, we can do that. But let's put everything in perspective. Let's make sure that we know that there are going to be bad actors. There are going to be abusers on the Democratic side of the aisle. We shouldn't be surprised when they surface, like Anthony fucking Weiner
through the election.
You know,
oh my God,
this is a police your own problem. This is where,
you know, when they show up, let's not line up to defend them. Let's look for the evidence. Let's believe the victims.
Let's give them some benefit of the doubt for a bit. Right.
And let's all remind ourselves that Anthony Weiner is serving time in prison for what he did.
Good job. Yeah. I'm very happy to see that Anthony Weiner is spending time in prison.
Yes. Sadly, Roy Moore will not, but
no.
But he should at least not be given a promotion for it.
And let me make one point here. This is the same with the Mueller investigation too. We are not just jumping down Donald Trump's throat in, you know, the Congress until the investigation's over, right? We are giving him some benefit of investigation, right? And that's true of Franken now, right? Let's have the investigation and see what comes of it. So, okay. So I agree with your point there, Sam. I think it's a fantastic point. And then
that was a good point.
That's just what I wanted to sum up. So let's all not lose our heads, and let's pay attention to the story going forward, and not let Republicans try to distract us.
And if you're in Alabama, go vote.
Doug Jones for Senate.
Jones, donate time. Go knock on doors if you're there, and vote if you can. So the next big thing right now is that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is that right? I hope I'm not getting that wrong, is led by a guy named Ajit Pai, and he is going to destroy net neutrality. The proposal is going to come out probably tomorrow or Wednesday, which is the day before Thanksgiving. And the concept is to end net neutrality. All right, let me check this out. See what you think of this. All right, so you go into the Golden Corral right now, which is basically how your internet is. And you can eat anything there. It's all part of the plan. You pay one price and you can eat anything there as much as you want. You can go anywhere. So you've got your Reddit carving station, you got your Facebook potatoes or whatever, right? So all these things, you can just go have as much as you want anywhere, but you don't have to eat everything. What they're going to try and change this to now is a restaurant where you have to either order a la carte, meaning you have to pick one thing at a time and you have to pay for everything individually, much like the cable that you are used to, right? You pay per channel, or you'll probably have some packages. And what this will mean is that they could block you off from things like, let's say, Breitbart News. Let's say Breitbart becomes embarrassing to them, so they cut it off. And they also cut off MSNBC because they have to be fair. What they could do is say, oh, well, you can only get Sinclair, news networks because those are the fair networks. They can just say, look, your plan doesn't include these other websites. It's not an all-you-can-eat anymore. It's limited. We've ended net neutrality. Net neutrality means that they can't decide which website you go to that legally exist, and they also can't throttle any of those, the data from any of those websites. So they're not supposed to slow down something like Netflix, because it's a website you're going to. It doesn't matter if it's Netflix or if it's their personal ABC website or a Comcast website. It's supposed to all be treated the exact same.
And what we should think about is what these companies are actually going to do if all of these regulations are removed. Mm-hmm. The net neutrality regulations were already mostly removed on mobile phone provider. I don't know if you guys remember, T-Mobile was running a promotion a while back, or actually they might be currently running it, where your streaming content, your streaming video, your streaming audio did not count against your data limit.
Right.
Do you remember them running that? That would fall afoul of the net neutrality rules because they're prioritizing streaming content. So, we shouldn't fall victim to hyperbole here. I mean, speaking as a businessman, I doubt that these ISPs are going to be blocking entire domains unless it's something like BitTorrent sites or people that are facilitating file sharing.
Yeah, BitTorrent's what originally started this, right? There was a ruling, I might have even been Supreme Court, I don't remember right off the top of my head, where they couldn't stop BitTorrent traffic, right, because of net neutrality. And there will be something limited, right? I think that's not hyperbole. Something will be limited.
I don't think it is. I think that we need to be careful when we start saying, they're going to block MSNBC or they're going to, it's going to be like your cable provider where you got to pay up to have access to MSN.com or the New York Times or whatever.
So let me fight back on that a little bit, because it may not be that you personally pay much more on your upfront plan, but what's going to happen is that they're going to charge Netflix a lot of money to let Netflix traffic go at the right speed. Right.
Yeah, that is absolutely what's going to happen.
Right. And so it will prevent other companies that, could be the next Netflix or Hulu or what have you from starting up.
Yeah, because Netflix can just say, oh, well, our content had better flow freely, but content from Netflix competitor X, don't let them have the same speed on your network. We're going to pay you extra.
Exactly.
And so I don't actually think this is hyperbole, right? Why do you want to get rid of net neutrality if it's not to charge people more money to get to websites? You know what I mean?
Well,
what's
the reason they want to do it is so that they can have leverage over the people who are pushing a lot of data through their
more money, right?
Because the internet is a series of tubes.
Right. No, I get it. Netflix is a giant pain in their butt. You know what I mean? Like, Netflix streaming takes up the majority of the internet. It may not be as much as it was maybe a year or two ago, but there was a pretty significant number I saw at one time of how much of the internet is just Netflix.
All streaming. And, what we could see is broadband providers retaliating against their competitors. For instance, I have Comcast Internet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Comcast cable internet.
Yeah, me too.
And separately, I have Dish Network satellite TV.
Yep.
Now, the Dish Network Hopper streams its on-demand content through my internet connection. Theoretically, Comcast could recognize that and throttle that content down. Now, I don't know if they're actually going to eliminate it. I don't know if they're actually going to throttle it down, because doing so would create a huge backlash.
But we already did see them throttle Netflix, right? Like, this has happened. Netflix has been throttled in the real world. This has happened. Yeah. But I think it's not hyperbole at this point, right? I think it's just to say that the reason people want to remove this restriction is because they want to make more money off of the internet service provider, right? And it may not be a bad deal.
The internet service provider wants to make more money off of the content providers.
Yeah, or even, because I think we're seeing this in Portugal. There are places where you have to buy a package of what you get access to on the internet. What's the advantage here for the consumer? Let me ask you that. Can you come up with a good advantage for the consumer of getting rid of net neutrality?
I can't think of one.
So I will say, theoretically, you could see reduced cost, because you're going to see you see reduced cost for low bandwidth users, because the people who are pushing a lot of bandwidth, that is increasing costs on the internet service provider and driving their costs up and their bandwidth requirements up.
But you can already do that, right? Because you can say you can only have 20 gigs a month, right? Like, that's legal. You can legally say you can only buy 20 gigs a month for this price, and after that it costs you so much. That's legal right now. It's just that within that 20 gigs, they can't say who gets, the share of that 20 gigs.
You asked what the possible.
Yeah, that's fair. I did.
and we could see something like what I said earlier, where T-Mobile exempted internet streaming companies from any bandwidth cap. And that is good for the consumer, because they have a marketing agreement with Netflix. Yeah. They have a marketing agreement with Pandora. They have a marketing agreement with Hulu. I think it was with Hulu. That exempts them from their bandwidth.
But I don't think that was net neutrality, right? That's not violating net neutrality.
That would have violated net neutrality. They did repeal some regulations for mobile phone providers on the logic that, if your mobile phone doesn't have full internet, well, I mean, your home internet connection does. You can always connect to Wi-Fi. And it's good for T-Mobile, because if you look into the details of that program, they also throttled the bandwidth down to 480p. Yeah. What had happened before is people were running up their bandwidth cap on 1080p and 720p video, and
slowing
it was
the network
costing
for everybody.
Yeah, slowing the network for everybody. So consumers actually did see a benefit. Now, I'm not saying that it's gonna.
So what about the consumers who were in, like, if you had gotten locked into a contract where you had unlimited data? Well, what about them? I mean,
well, I don't think that contract affected. I don't think that applied to T-Mobile, because I don't think they ever.
Verizon did that. Data. Yeah, I think it was Verizon.
AT&T did too, because I know we're in one.
So my concern is that they're going to EA the internet, right? They're going to charge you for everything. They're going to EA the internet, right? We had this big kerfuffle on Reddit this week, maybe of the everywhere. Yeah, the most downvoted comment in the history of Reddit. It's like minus 600,000 votes right now. And what EA was trying to do is charge you to unlock characters, or you had to play about 40 hours before you could unlock any one of the big characters. And the idea was just to, nickel and dime everybody over everything. And I mean, it's a great idea if you're the company, unless you create such a feedback loop where everybody just is like, no, I will not put up with this. And it really could be that if you end net neutrality, nothing changes. People, the cat's out of the bag. People know what they want, right? They might drop it.
Things are going to change.
But I agree. I think they're going to go to Netflix and say, you're going to pay a lot more money for us to put your...
Because they can.
Because they can, yeah.
Because they can.
Because they can.
When has business ever not seen an opportunity, or ever seen an opportunity and not been like, I'm just going to leave that alone.
I mean, I'm
not going to go there.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing that wealthy people love, right? It's the ability to take something that's right now kind of a public good, which is net neutrality, anything can go, and sell it off. And then all of a sudden you can make a ton of money off that.
So, and here's what we need to be doing. We need to be classifying internet access as a public utility. Something like electricity, something like sewer, something like water, and regulating it as such. In many areas of this country, there is not meaningful competition between internet service providers. So, if you're living in a rural area where you only have one DSL provider, and other than that, I guess it's HughesNet, the satellite provider, or nothing. All you can do is you can, if these net neutrality rules go away, and this rural DSL company says, hey, we're going to upcharge you now if you want access to streaming platforms, you have no alternative. You have no way to compete with that. It really loses, it really opens the door for a lot of consumers to lose out. We could see something beneficial out of it, if companies behaved in a responsible manner. But companies don't really have a history of doing that. And
you don't even have to be in a rural area. I'm just south of Houston, and there's pretty much only one option for me. So. Yeah.
I have two, so I can choose between DSL and I can choose between cable. And I live in the Seattle metro. It's not that good.
It's not good. It's not great.
If you don't have a phone line to your house, then you've just got cable.
Yeah, and you know what? If it's after a hurricane, that's not good.
No, it's really not. And anyway, so this is happening, and this is feels to me like, do you guys know what a gish gallop is? Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah.
I just learned about it, but go ahead.
All right. So a gish gallop was invented by who is this person? It's a really amazing technique, right? So what you do is you get up there and it's your turn in a debate and you just list 100 different things, and they're all basically conspiracy theories. You talk about how the Illuminati are raising this huge army of scientists to investigate the climate change, but it's all wrong because it's based on the Templars, right? Like, so you just do this for like your entire time, and then your opponent gets to respond and they could just kind of look at you, right? And they try to address maybe one or two things of the like 100 things you just threw at them. To the debate audience, they say, oh, well, okay, they refuted those two things, but what about the other like 98 things that were thrown out there? And this was done by, the most famous example is done by this creationist Dwayne Gish. The idea is just you throw out as many fallacious arguments as you can, and they can't refute all of them. You're not really doing this in good faith, obviously. You're not trying to win any individual argument. And
you have no argument.
You have no argument, yeah. And to me, that's sort of what this administration feels like. They're just coming up with all these completely crazy things, like the elephant import ban, right? That was weird. Like, oh, we're going to let elephants come in. Oh, okay, no, we're not. That's horrible. It's just strange.
The trophy ban, right?
The trophy ban, yeah. But the lion ban is gone, right? You can still import lions, as far as I know.
Yeah. No, you can. Yeah. I read an article about that today about how they had some group was fighting. They had been fighting the lion ban or the lion import rule for a while even before the elephant one was ever announced.
Yeah, and then it's okay to so the elephant one comes and goes, but in the meantime, the House passes the tax plan, right? So it's just any number of things that if you're really paying attention, for you to like feel a reaction to. And
by the way, can I just slip in? Which, since we were talking about the net neutrality thing, I think they're going to try to slip that in over the week of Thanksgiving, which is this week. Right. So I don't know when this
there will be a public hearing, I believe, in December. But yeah, they're trying to make the announcement come during when everybody's traveling.
When everyone's traveling, and so just FYI.
That might be a mistake though, because everyone will be trying to ignore family on the internet. So we'll see what happens.
So maybe, right. Good reason not to be throttled.
Yes. Don't be throttled. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be throttled during Thanksgiving. Anyways,
while you're trying to ignore your family. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Right. But this is just kind of government by gish gallop. It's just every week just feels like it drags on because there's always something that comes out of the political sphere, right? This is, I think, maybe not on purpose a tactic, but it is an effective tactic because it's so hard to focus on what is actually going to be long term, right? Is this actual tax plan going to go forward? The one that tries to remove the mandate to get insurance? The one that, if they do that, the insurance markets are going to just go insane. Is that really going to happen? And they're not really talking about it. They refuse to be honest about this.
Everything's in secret.
Here's a pet peeve of mine with the Democratic Party, and the Washington Post actually called them out on this.
Okay.
Several Democratic senators have been going out stating that if you remove the individual mandate requirement, that it'll kick 12 million people, 13 million people off of their insurance. Well, it's not that wording is incorrect. So it's not kicking anyone off their insurance. The 12, 13 million people, those are the people who would not buy insurance
because
if the government didn't require them to.
Right.
So,
and if they don't buy insurance, then the prices go up because you don't have a big enough pool, right?
Yes, because those people are, those people are young, those people are healthy.
Yep.
And we will still have regulations stating that you can't deny anyone coverage or discriminate against them because of pre-existing conditions. So what does a young, healthy person do? Well, they don't pay for insurance until they get cancer, until they get HIV, until they get some expensive illness, and then they go buy insurance and sponge off of everybody else. That would cause what's called a death spiral, where the insurance pool gets sicker and sicker and sicker until nobody can ever afford insurance. That's the bad thing about it. That's the argument we should be making. Yeah. Not that it's kicking people off of insurance, but that it would destroy the insurance market.
Yeah, and we could even be honest about it, right? We can be honest and say, look, if you're young and healthy, you're obviously going to want to drop it. But the problem is then when you do need insurance, it's going to be too expensive. You
can even be young and healthy and still need insurance. I mean, my 30-year-old cousin just got brain cancer and passed away not that long ago. And you know what? Yeah. She was very young and very healthy, and it just came on, and it doesn't run in the family, and it just happened.
Diseases are stochastic, right? I mean, I know I've got a friend who's, got lung cancer, never smoked nothing, my age.
Yeah, right. So we shouldn't look at it as, well, I'm young and I'm healthy, I'm not going to get sick. We should look at it as more like flood insurance.
Right.
Whereas if there's going to be a hurricane or not, it doesn't matter.
Your time's coming. Yeah, if you're a human, your time is coming. I promise you that.
So, maybe that's how we should frame this. We all live on the coast, and it's hurricane season.
Yep.
So,
so you're right, Sam. Yeah, that's a bad way to frame it because it is a lie, right? It's not that those people will lose insurance; it's they will choose not to get it, and when they choose not to get it, it will lead to a death spiral, which will ultimately mean that when you need insurance, it's going to be very expensive, if it even exists.
Exactly. So, but continuing on, we should definitely pay attention to this.
Yeah. To
this tax reform plan, because it's not a tax reform plan. It's not done with any bipartisan involvement. So it's completely beyond the pale of anything that we've ever seen before in the past, modern history of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that really worries me, I mean, I have a PhD in science, and one of the things I did was I worked for the university, and one of the big changes in this bill, and I think it's in the House and Senate version, is that, grad students, the way they get income right now is going to change dramatically, and they're going to end up paying significantly more in taxes. And this is a problem because we do need experts. I know that, the folks who support Trump think we don't need them, but the people who are designing this, the military, the people who are leading this insane economy that we have, right, this knowledge economy, these people usually have graduate degrees. And
yeah, whether you like to admit it or not, it's true. We need smart people.
We need smart people.
Scientists, engineers. They're kind of important, guys.
It's about being smart and having the training and the background to be able to contribute to your field. And that isn't easy. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And if you can't afford to do it, it's over.
And it's not just things like, people think of scientists, they might think of these hotty-toddy people in lab coats just talking about climate science. And it's like, if that's not your bag, okay, fine. Think about civil engineers and bridges. Do you like bridges that don't fall down?
Right.
Yes, I don't.
Is that important to you?
I think bridges are much more fun when you have to think about them falling down.
Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it?
What, can we agree on that?
No, right. The point is, even if all you care about is the military, guess what?
Guess what?
Building these like lasers and like catapults and so forth, those require people with degrees because it takes a long time to understand and master these techniques and understand the math behind it. It's not
How
simple.
embarrassing is it going to be when Russia, China, and North Korea overtake us in weapons expertise?
Well, I don't think North Korea is.
We are just sitting here with our thumb up our ass and just going to be like, we're too
good for science.
We're too stubborn. We're too stubborn. We're just like, no, we're not going to be smart. No, we're not. We're going to show those liberals. We're going to show them.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding
they are.
me?
They are definitely showing us something.
Make America a third world country again.
Right. We're not going to have internet.
Can we put that on a hat?
We're not going to have horses, and we're not going to have weapons, and we're not going to have anything. And we're going to show you. We're going to show you. And it's like, what?
We're going to show you. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the problem of our time. And, it's a bit of a weird time to be alive, right? Because, honestly, like being an American right now is actually not a bad thing, right? It's an okay time. The economy's doing okay. It could be worse, right? It's been worse.
I'm slowly getting there. I'd rather not.
Right.
The slope is changing. But.
The slope is changing, right? And I think that's the point we're trying to raise here is that there is a quality of life that we have right now that could go away. And to me, at least personally, if you start taking away the biggest economic driver of my lifetime, the free and open internet, I worry that cripples us. And if you start making it hard for people to go to get graduate degrees, I think that cripples us in the future, right? I think all these things can go very badly. And I think if you elect a pedophile to the damn Senate, that's bad. You know what I mean? That hurts our prestige, and prestige matters. There are times when you need it.
So you talk about prestige, and I think one of the most prestigious things we've ever done, and I am a little biased working for NASA, but putting someone on the moon.
Absolutely.
Right?
America.
Laying the flag on the moon.
Yeah.
No argument.
NASA's kind of different in that it has the rah-rah America people who like to brag that we put a man on the moon. And then it also has the science people who like to, talk about all the satellites that do the climate science. So we get support from both sides. And so it's like, even if you're not a climate science person, do you want to see a Russian or a Chinese person or
do you want to see China settle the moon?
Or on surface of Mars before us?
Yeah, and then lock us out.
Then, let's support education, guys. Let's support higher education. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, do you think that we would have broken the sound barrier with Chuck Yeager if we didn't have government investment in science? No,
we wouldn't have. Right, the paper scientists, but regardless,
very
the
smart
rest of
people.
NASA.
We'll go to the moon. We're just going to tape a whole bunch of V2 rockets together, and we'll call it good.
Right? No,
kind of work.
We need more people.
Make
bigger. We need more people.
Twice the size. Let's do it, guys. Yeah, that's right. In conclusion to this pod episode, science is good. Don't elect a pedophile.
Very good.
Doug Jones is fantastic in Alabama.
Vote for Doug Jones.
Vote for Doug Jones. That's right. Vote for Doug Jones.
Donate to Doug Jones.
And call your senator. Call your senator. Call your senator.
That's right. Right. Taxes and FCC. Those have essentially, the tax plan has passed the House. It has to be reconciled with the Senate if the Senate passes something. It can be blocked in the Senate. It really can. We've done this before. It's exhausting. I get it. But let's do it again.
We can do it again.
is we need to delay it until January. January comes. Hopefully, Doug Jones will win. Okay, the Republicans will have a 1-vote or 2-vote majority in the Senate, and with 2 defections, we could stop the bill, which will easily happen because Murkowski's come out against it,
Collins.
I believe, and Collins has come out against it, and there's several Republicans that have said
McCain is always iffy.
Flake.
Yeah. There's several people on the right that have said that they won't vote for any tax bill that will raise the deficit by a dime. This does.
Right. Oh, man. Yes, it does. Yeah. The short thing about the tax plan is it's mostly we borrow $1.5 trillion and we give most of it to rich people.
That's over 10 years. That's not.
Oh, no, wait. You're good if you own a golf course or a private jet. You're good.
Can you think of a Venn diagram where a golf course owner, a private jet owner, and somebody who might owe the estate tax might look like? Can you think of anyone who would fit in that?
No, 70.
No,
something.
I can't.
Yeah, it's weird.
No one.
Yeah. Oh, well. Whatever, guys.
Wait, can I say one thing? There is this tweet I just saw, and it says, I have a challenge for you tomorrow. Hashtag 2 calls, 3 asks. Call 202-224-3121. That's the Senate number. Ask your 2 senators for 3 things. Vote no on the tax reform bill. Ask them to reauthorize SHIP and demand net neutrality. If they don't answer, leave a message. If it's a staffer, be polite. Calls matter. There you go.
They do. Calls have stopped this before. Let's do it again. Well, thank you for joining us on Politics Within Reason, and we'll talk to you next time. Give us a call if you're interested in having us discuss your issues, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Nation. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to give us a like, share, or a comment. If you like what Corp is doing and what you hear, why not consider becoming a supporting member? Help us do more. Join today at partyofreasonandprogress.org. The Party of Reason and Progress is a registered IRS 527 organization. Contributions made to Corp or other IRS 527 organizations are not tax deductible. Politics Within Reason is the official podcast of the Party of Reason and Progress.